Okay, dear student, today we'll begin our lesson with chapter number 2, Biological Molecules. The term biological refers to all the molecules that are present in the bodies of living organism, or they make up the bodies of living organism. Remember, dear students, that there are 4 elements that make up the bodies of living organism over 99%. For example, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. These are the 4 elements. They make up 99% of your body. Okay? Now, in this chapter you will be able to learn, describe how large biological molecules are made from smaller molecules. Describe the structure and function of carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. Carry out biological tests to identify carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. Explain some key properties of water that make life possible. In this chapter we are going to explain these 4 points in much more detail. Okay, let's begin. First I would like to explain the term biological molecules. Molecules that make up the bodies of living organism are called biological molecule. For example, proteins, carbohydrates, fats. Okay, these are actually the molecule. They make up the bodies of living organism. Along with these molecules, some of the molecules like calcium, metal ions like calcium, magnesium, oxygen, these are also the elements. They make up the molecule. The study of biological molecule are called molecular biology. Okay, so in this chapter we will study mostly on the molecular biology, specifically the 3 and very important of them: carbohydrates, fats and proteins, along with the water, because 65 to 70% of your body is composed of water. So in this chapter we are going to mainly focus on these 4 different types of biological molecules, their structures and their functions and their importance to living organism. Now, what is the link between a biological molecule and molecular biology, okay, or biochemistry? Molecular biology is closely linked with biochemistry. Okay, closely linked with biochemistry because in molecular biology we study only the molecules that make up the bodies of living organism, and in biochemistry we actually focus on the chemical reaction they are taking place among these molecules. The biochemistry looks at the chemical reactions of biological molecules in the body. It's not reactions into the body. Okay, the sum total of all the chemical reaction in the body is known as metabolism. So inside the body there are 2 types of reactions. Number 1, smaller molecules join together to form larger molecule, and larger molecule again are broken into smaller ones. Collectively all those chemical reactions are said to be metabolism. Okay, so the sum total of all the chemical reaction in the body is known as metabolism. For example, each second you produce more than 10,000 proteins from the simple molecule like amino acids. Okay, so it means that this is the anabolism. Anabolism means smaller molecule like amino acid combine with one another to form larger molecule like proteins. This is only one type of metabolism. Again, these proteins molecule can be broken to form smaller molecules like amino acids. So the sum total of all these chemical reaction in the body are said to be metabolism. Metabolism is a complex chemical reactions, or it is a complex because it has an underlying simplicity. Okay, so we are going to, in this chapter you will study that larger molecules are usually broken into smaller ones, and these smaller molecules again join together to form larger ones. Now let me explain the term building blocks of life. Okay, so at the beginning of this chapter we studied that there are 4 elements. They make 99% or more than 99% of your body, and these are hydrogen, carbon, oxygen and nitrogen, and this account for more than 99% of the atoms found in your body. Okay, carbon is particularly important because most of the molecules inside the bodies of living organism are organic. What's meant by the term organic? Organic means carbon containing molecule are said to be organic. For example, protein contain carbon in them, so proteins are said to be organic molecules. Carbohydrates contain carbon in them, so carbohydrates are said to be organic. Fats contain carbon in them, so fats are said to be organic. Okay, so carbon containing molecules are said to be organic molecule. Remember one thing, that there are certain molecules they do contain carbon in them, but they can never be called organic, like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, carbonates, bicarbonates. These are the molecules they do contain carbon in them, but they can never be called organic, because all the properties and all the characteristics of these molecules resemble inorganic. Therefore they are categorized as inorganic molecule. For example, organic molecule burns. This is the property of organic molecule, to release energy. Now inorganic molecule, for example carbon dioxide gas, don't have any property to burn, okay, or for example help in burning. So this cannot be called inflammable. Organic molecule are inflammable, and inorganic molecule are flammable. Inorganic molecule are inflammable. Flammable, they burns. Okay, inflammable, they don't burn. Okay, these 4 molecules or these 4 elements, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen and nitrogen, these are thought as the basic skeleton of organic molecule, to which groups of other atoms are attached. Organic molecule always contain carbon and hydrogen. That's very important. In other words, you can define the term organic chemistry as the study of hydrocarbons, because they contain carbon as well as hydrogen in them. So in other words, you can define organic chemistry as the study of hydrocarbons. They contain both. For example, carbon dioxide gas can never be called organic because it contains carbon, but it does not contain any hydrogen in them. Okay, monomers, polymers and macromers. What is monomer? A monomer is a relatively simple molecule which is used as a basic building block for synthesis of polymer. Okay, remember one thing to make it even very simple. Monomers are smaller molecule. They join together to form larger molecule. Larger molecule is said to be polymer. For example, amino acid. Amino acid is a polymer. They combine with one another. One amino acid combine with another amino acid, combine with another amino acid, and they form a very long chain of amino acids. Now this long chain of amino acid is said to be protein. So protein are polymer and amino acid are monomers. A monomer is a relatively simple molecule which is used as a basic building block for the synthesis of a polymer. Many monomers are joined together to make polymers, usually by condensation reaction. Condensation I'm going to explain over here. What is condensation? Condensation means when smaller molecules join together to form larger molecule, the reaction is said to be condensation. Okay. Common example of molecules used is monomer are monosaccharides, amino acid and nucleotide. Okay, monosaccharides are actually the monomer for carbohydrates like polysaccharides. Okay, so starch, glycogen, cellulose, these are said to be polysaccharides. Okay, and they are made from monosaccharide like glucose, alpha glucose or beta glucose or fructose, etc. These are monomers. They usually link up with one another to form a larger molecule or giant molecule. Okay, amino acid link up with one another to form proteins, and nucleotides link up with one another to form DNA molecule. DNA is a very longer molecule, a very large molecule, a giant molecule. A polymer is a giant molecule. Giant means very big, made from many similar repeating subunits joined together in a chain. The subunits are much smaller and simpler molecule known as monomer. Example of biological polymer are polysaccharides, proteins and nucleotides. We explain them. Okay, macro, never confused with the term macro or micro. Macro means big, very big or large. A macromolecule is a large biological molecule such as protein, polysaccharide or nucleic acid. These are said to be polymers. For example, proteins are polymer, polysaccharides are polymer, nucleic acid are polymer, because they are made by joining similar and smaller molecules. So this was just the brief introduction to polymer, monomers, polymers and macromolecules. Hope you understood. Okay, let's begin with a new topic. Carbohydrates. Dear students, I would like you to look at here this term carbo. Carbo means carbon, and look at this structure. This means hydrates, water. So it is actually a two word. For example, from here it is carbon and from here it is water. Okay, so for example, these are hydrates of water. Hydrates of water. Carbon means, so carbohydrates, carbon and water molecule. Why we call this hydrates? Because the ratio between hydrogen and oxygen is exactly the same as it is in the water. Okay, look at here. All carbohydrates contain the element carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So the ratio between hydrogen and oxygen is exactly equal to the ratio between a water molecule. Okay, the hydrate part of the name comes from the fact that hydrogen and oxygen atoms are present in the ratio. It's not, N is not here. Okay, ratio 2:1 as they are in water. Okay, hydrates refers to water. Okay, the general formula for a carbohydrate can therefore be written as, look at here, this is carbon and this is water, and this is actually the general formula for carbohydrates. These are hydrates of water, carbon and water molecule. For example, C6H12O6. The empirical formula of glucose is CH2O. CH2O. So C is carbo and H2O is hydrates. Okay, carbohydrates are divided into three main groups, namely monosaccharides, we described them, disaccharides are the carbohydrates when two monosaccharides link with one another, and polysaccharides means when many hundreds or many thousand monomers link up with one another, they form a very big molecule, and the very big molecule are said to be polysaccharides. The word saccharide or saccharum refer to sugar or sweet substances. In other words, you can say that carbohydrates are actually the molecule they produce sweetness in the mouth. But remember one thing, all carbohydrates do not produce sweetness in the mouth. For example, cellulose are polysaccharides. They are carbohydrates, but they are not sweet. Monosaccharides are sweetest. Disaccharides are less sweeter, and polysaccharide do not have any sweet taste. Okay, now let's move to the next topic. Okay, monosaccharides, we'll describe them in more detail. Okay, now these are sugar, and you know that sugar are sweet, we just studied. Okay, sugar dissolve easily in water to form sweet tasting solution. Okay, monosaccharides have general formula CH2ON. Okay, N means this may be any number, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, for example, if I write 6 over here, okay, so it becomes C6H12O6 and consists of a single sugar molecule. Mono means one. Okay, mono, one, saccharum, sugar, one sugar molecule or a single sugar molecule. The type of monosaccharides, if they are classified according to the number of carbon atom in each molecule, are trioses. Tri means three. Ose, OSE represents a sugar molecule. So trioses are 3 carbon sugar. Pent means 5. Oses represent a sugar molecule. Pentose, 5 carbon sugar. And hex means 6. Okay, and ose means a glucose molecule. So hexoses represent 6 carbon glucose molecule. Okay, common hexoses are glucose because glucose has the formula C6H12O6. So hexoses are glucose, fructose and galactose. These are 6 carbon sugar. 2 common pentoses are ribose and deoxyribose. Ribose are present in the RNA and deoxyribose is present in the DNA. Okay. Molecular and structural formulae. This is very important. I would like you to pay attention. Okay. Now the formula for hexoses means 6 carbon sugar can be written as C6H12O6. This is known as molecular formula. Remember one thing, molecular formula shows 2 things: the type of elements they combine and the number of atoms. Look at here, it provides 2 information: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. These are the types of elements combining. And 6, 12 and 6, this is the number of atoms they combine to form the molecules. So a molecular formula shows 2 very important information: the type of element and the number of atoms. It is useful to show that arrangement of the atoms, which can be done using a diagram known as the structural formulae. Now this formula is said to be molecular formula. Now this only provides 2 information: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and the number of atoms. Now what is meant by the term structural formula? The structural formula represent how carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are linked to form the skeletal formula or the structural formula. Okay, dear students, I would like you to open your books and just look how carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are linked with one another. Okay, dear students, pause the video and open your books at page 30. Okay, figure 2.3 and figure 2.4. okay, it's very important to know how carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are linked with one another. Okay, now if you carefully look at the structural formula of glucose, you will see that the chain is very longer and the chain can be bent to form a ring structure. Okay, So in this topic we are going to explain the ring structure of glucose. Okay, one important aspect of the structure of pentoses and hexoses is that the chain of carbon atom is long enough to close up on itself and form a more stable ring form. Remember one thing, the structural formulae of glucose and the ring structure. Okay, ring structure are more stable than the structural formulae or the structures. Okay, this can be illustrated using glucose as an example. Okay, glucose is a 6-carbon molecule, so the chain is very longer. Therefore, carbon atom number 1 can link with carbon atom number 5 through oxygen atom. Okay, and they form a ring, a hexagon structure. You can see them on page 30. When glucose form a ring, a carbon atom number 1 join to oxygen on carbon atom number 5. Now look at here, that you can see that the oxygen is colored red because carbon atom number 1 is linked with oxygen, and so carbon number 5. Both carbon number 1 and 5 are linked with oxygen and they form a ring structure. Okay. The hydroxyl group on carbon atom number 1 may be above or below. Now it's very important, okay, above or below. Okay, when the hydroxyl group on carbon atom number 1 is below, it means that this is alpha glucose, and when hydroxyl group on carbon number 1 is above, it means that it is beta glucose. So the rings may be alpha glucose or beta glucose on the basis of hydroxyl group. If it is below, it means that this is alpha, above means that it is beta glucose. The form of the ring where it is below the ring is known as alpha glucose, and the form where it is above the ring is called beta glucose. Okay. Now, roles of monosaccharides in living organism. Dear students, remember that monosaccharides have two functions. Function number 1, these are the monomers. They link up with one another to form polymers. Okay, for example, polysaccharides are what they are polymers. They are made by combining smaller sugar molecules. These small monomers combine together to form polymers. This is function number 1. Function number 2 is these are a source of energy, okay, in the respiration. For example, we actually eat carbohydrates of many different types: monosaccharide, disaccharide, and polysaccharide. Polysaccharides are first broken to form monosaccharides, and these monosaccharides are then source of energy. Okay, and the secondly source of energy, and they form polysaccharides because they are the building block for larger molecules. Now, disaccharides, the word di represents two. Di means two and saccharum means sugar. When two monomers or two sugar molecules join together, they form disaccharides. And what is meant by the term glycosidic bonds? Glycosidic bond is actually the bond that holds two monosaccharides with one another. Okay, for example, one alpha glucose combined with another alpha glucose, they form a disaccharide because monosaccharide plus monosaccharide is equal to disaccharide. Disaccharides, like monosaccharides, are sugar. They are formed by two monosaccharides joining together. The three most common disaccharides are maltose, glucose plus glucose, sucrose, glucose plus fructose, and lactose, glucose plus galactose. Sucrose is the transport sugar in plants and the sugar commonly bought in the shops. Okay, lactose is the sugar found in milk and is therefore an important constituent of the diet of young mammals. The joining of two monosaccharides. Okay, sucrose is the transport sugar in plants. and sugar commonly bought in the shops. Photosynthesis produces glucose. Glucose can never be transported from the leaves to other parts of the body because glucose dissolves in water. Okay, so glucose must be converted to sucrose because sucrose is insoluble in the water. Okay, therefore they can easily be transported to other parts of the body. Lactose is the sugar found in milk and is therefore an important constituent of the diet of young mammals. Okay, lactose, milk sugar. Okay, lactose, milk sugar, is the sugar found in the milk and is therefore an important constituent of the diet of young mammals. Okay, the joining of two monosaccharides takes place by a process known as condensation. The reverse of condensation is hydrolysis. Condensation we studied at the beginning of the chapter, that when smaller molecules link up with one another to form larger molecules, this is said to be condensation, and a water molecule is released in the process. Hydrolysis. Hydro means water, lysis means breaking. If you provide the water, the same polysaccharides or the same polymer can be broken down back into the monosaccharides. Hydrolysis is actually the opposite of condensation. Larger molecules are broken into smaller ones and this releases water molecules. Now, glycosidic bond, we studied that this is actually the bond that holds two monosaccharides together. Okay, two glucose molecules together. In chemistry, a glycosidic bond or a glycosidic linkage is a type of covalent bond that joins a carbohydrate sugar molecule to another group which may or may not be in other carbohydrates. Okay, glycosidic bond, one thing for sure, that glyco is this represents glucose. It links or it combines or it binds a sugar molecule with another molecule. There may be another sugar molecule or something else, okay, or may not be the sugar molecule, but one of them must be the sugar molecule. Okay, polysaccharides, look at here, poly means many, saccharum, saccharide means sugar. Okay, this is actually the giant molecule or macromolecules. Okay, polysaccharides are polymers whose subunits are monosaccharides. Okay, or in other words, we can say that monosaccharides link up with one another to form polysaccharides. They are made by joining many monosaccharide molecules by condensation. Each successive monosaccharide is aided by means of glycosidic bond, means one monosaccharide binds another monosaccharide. Okay, each and every time you add a monosaccharide, there is a bond establishes between them. Glycosidic bond actually bind them to one another. The final molecule may be, I forgot E over here, right, maybe several thousand monosaccharide unit long. The most important polysaccharides are starch, glycogen and cellulose, all of which are polymer of glucose. Now we are going to study starch, glycogen and cellulose in more detail in this chapter. Okay, polysaccharides are not sugar. Okay, we'll begin with the starch. Dear students, open your books at page 33, figure 2.6. You can see that half one monosaccharide is linked with another molecule, with another monosaccharide. You can see that carbon atom number 1 of one monomer is actually linked with carbon atom number 4 of another monomer or monosaccharide. Now the oxygen atom that is holding two monosaccharide together, the bond is said to be glycosidic bond. This is actually the type of covalent bond. Okay, now the final molecule that is produced, okay, you can see that it contains several thousand monomers or monosaccharide molecule. This is a very long molecule. It's a very giant molecule. They are formed from the alpha or beta molecule, whatever that may be. We are going to study them in more detail. In this way, a long unbranching chain of several thousand 1,4 linked glucose molecule is built. Okay, the chain are curved and coiled into helical structure like spring. You can see that just like a spring molecule coiled over and over and over again. Okay, the chain are curved and coiled into helical structure like spring. Amylopectin is also made by many 1,4 linked alpha glucose. Okay, amylose is made by condensation alpha glucose. It means that there is actually no branching at all. This is just a straight chain, okay, coiled over and over and over again. Now what about the amylopectin? The molecule also, there is 1,4 linkages of alpha glucose, but the chain are shorter than in amylose and branch out to the sides. Molecules are, the chain is shorter, but they are branching out. You can see, look at here, figure 2.7. You can see that there are green color hexoses. Now look at here how they branch out. When they branch out, they form a 1,6 linkage. It means that carbon atom number 1 link with carbon atom number 6 to form the chain. Now the rest in the branch, they form 1,4 linkages. 1,6 means that carbon atom number 1 link with carbon atom number 6 of another monosaccharide. Now this is the main difference between amylose and amylopectin. Amylose have no branch, okay, and amylopectin branch out. The branch are formed by 1,6 linkages. It means that carbon atom number 6 in the main chain link with carbon atom number 1 in the branch. Okay, 1,6 linkages. Carbon atom number 1 link with carbon atom number 6 in another monosaccharide. Glycogen. Okay, remember that this is actually the main polysaccharide in the animals. Okay, glycogen are never found in the plants. Instead, there is starches in them. Okay, glycogen, like amylopectin, is made by a chain of 1,4 linked alpha glucose with 1,6 linkage forming branches. Okay, glycogen molecule tend to be even more branching than amylopectin molecule. What is the difference between amylopectin and glycogen? Branches are much more as compared to amylopectin. Okay, this is the only difference between amylopectin and the glycogen. Branches are much greater in glycogen as compared to amylopectin. These are the structural differences between amylopectin and the glycogen. Glycogen molecule may clump together to form granules, which are visible in liver cells and muscle cell, where they form an energy reserve. Okay. Now this is actually our body cannot store glucose. They convert glucose into glycogen, and these glycogen molecule can be converted back to monosaccharides, and those monosaccharides then be converted into the energy. Remember that liver cells reserves these molecules for the later use. Okay. Dear students, open your books at page 34 and 35. Cellulose. Cellulose is another polysaccharide. This is the most abundant organic molecule on the planet due to two reasons. Number one, it's present in the plant cell wall, and number two, its low rate of breakdown in the nature. Okay, so it means that plant cell contains cellulose. About 20% to 40% of the cell wall is present or is composed of cellulose. Okay, it's the most important polysaccharide in the plant. Number two, its low rate of breakdown. It takes years to for the glucose molecule to decay. Okay, it has a structural role, being a mechanically strong molecule, unlike starch and glycogen. Glycogen and starch molecule are not stronger molecule, but cellulose molecule is a stronger molecule. The strength of cellulose can be compared with the tensile strength of the steel. It means it is the most strong molecule, the difficult molecule to break or stretch. For example, look at the bodies of animals. They contain skeleton and the skeletons support them. Now, there is no skeleton in the bodies of plants. Instead, cellulose are the molecule that provide the strength to the plants to withstand against the high pressure of the storm. Okay, it also keep the plant upright in the air. Okay, for example, the storm or the wind actually exert a high pressure upon the trees. Still they withstand the pressure, okay, or they withstand the force applied to them. It's just because of the cellulose present in their cell wall. Okay, so the only difference between cellulose and starch and glycogen is that cellulose is a polymer of beta glucose, not alpha glucose. Okay, for example, we studied that glycogen, starch, these are actually the polysaccharides and they are made of alpha glucose. Now, the difference between cellulose and starch and glycogen is glucose molecules are made by beta glucose, okay, not alpha glucose. Successive glucose, it means that beta glucose units are linked at 180 degree to each other. Remember, 180 is very important right here. Okay, let's suppose you have a beta glucose and the other beta glucose that are going to link with the first beta glucose, it must rotate 180. The third one must rotate 180. Each and every monosaccharide, each and every beta glucose molecule they link to the chain must rotate at 180. And you can see at page 34 that, for example, there is one beta molecule and the next or the second beta molecule actually rotate at 180 degree. The third again 180, fourth again 180. Each and every molecule they attach to the longest chain must rotate at 180 molecule. Now look at figure 2.9b. On 2.9b you can see that one glycosidic bond is downward, another is upward, another downward, upward, downward, upward. This represents that each and every molecule rotate at 180 molecule. Now dear students, I would like you to open your books at page 35, figure 2.10. Now you can see that there are crisscross fibers or microfibrils of the cellulose. Now this provide even a more stronger structure. Now one of the cellulose fiber is zoomed in order to understand. Now the diameter of the cellulose fiber is 50 nanometer, made by many microfibrils. Now you can see that there are many microfibrils combine together to form cellulose microfibrils, okay, or cellulose fiber. Now, one microfibril is composed of many chains of cellulose. Now you can see that there is one chain, there is another chain. Now the chain are actually linked with one another by hydrogen bond. You can see that there are dots between one chain and another chain. These dots represent hydrogen bonding, okay, and this is the glucose ring structure, okay, part 1 of glucose molecule. Okay, now look at here. The diameter of microfibril is 10 nanometer, made of 60 to 70 molecules. Okay, now you can see that the very tiny dots represent a molecule. Only 2 of them are zoomed in order to better understand the structure of the cellulose. Dear students, I would like you to pay great attention to this molecule. It's very important. Okay, the next we are going to study the cell wall. A cell wall typically has several layers of fibers running in different directions to increase strength. You can see that the structure of cellulose, this is actually the cell wall. In the cell wall, and you can see that these are crisscross, okay, horizontal and vertical. Okay, cellulose make up about 20 to 40% of the average cell wall. Other molecule link to cross-link the molecule cellulose fiber, and some form a glue-like matrix around the fiber, which further increase strength. Cellulose fiber have a very high tensile strength, almost equal to that of the steel we studied. Despite their strength, cellulose fiber are freely permeable, allowing water and solutes to reach or leave the cell surface membrane. Now you can see that, look at the cellulose fiber, they are linked crisscross. You can see there are larger spaces between them. Therefore, these are freely permeable to molecules. Molecule can easily move into and move out of it. Now, dear student, we explain dipoles and hydrogen bond. Di means two, and poles, there are positive and negative poles, and hydrogen bonds. First, we will explain the term dipoles, then you will easily understand the hydrogen bonding. Okay, now you might remember the definition of covalent bond. Covalent bonds are actually the bonds between two atoms, two similar atoms or two different atoms. For example, oxygen gas, the bond between two oxygen, okay, this is said to be non-polar because the shared electron pair is equally, okay, equally shared between two oxygen atoms. It means that there is actually no positive or negative charge on each of the oxygen atom. In case of hydrochloric acid, for example, hydrogen is a positive pole and chlorine is a negative pole. Okay, it means that this molecule is now said to be the dipole because it contains two poles. Okay, chlorine gas is non-polar, fluorine is non-polar, iodine gas is non-polar, because these are actually a bond between two similar, a covalent bond between two similar atoms is said to be non-polar. Okay, and two similar or two different, for example hydrochloric acid or for example water molecule. We are going to explain them in water molecule because your book has explained them in the water. Okay, the bond between the water molecule is made of hydrogen and oxygen. There are two single bonds. Okay, for example, oxygen has 6 electrons in the outermost shell, so it forms one single bond with one hydrogen, another single bond with another hydrogen. Now, hydrogen become positive pole and oxygen become negative pole. Now the hydrogen of one water molecule is attractive to oxygen of another water molecule, and the same is true for almost all of the hydrogen molecules. This attractive forces between one water molecule and another molecule is said to be hydrogen bonding. Okay, the hydrogen bonding are very weak bonding, but when massive, many hydrogen molecule link with this bonding, then it produces a very high, for example, a high force. For example, you can't separate a single water molecule by ordinary way. Okay, it's very difficult to separate a hydrogen atom from the water, as from a hydrogen molecule, a water molecule from the water, because it is actually linked with 3 other water molecules. It's much weaker than covalent bond, but still has a very significant effect, because many different molecules actually link up with one another. Okay, dear students, I would like you to open your books at page 35. You can see that there is a water molecule. Water molecule is composed of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atom. Okay, now the bond between oxygen and hydrogen is said to be the covalent bond. Now you can see that there is a partial positive charge on the hydrogen and partial negative charge on the oxygen. Now this is actually a dipole, positive pole and negative pole. Okay, now look at page 35. You can see that there is a weak attractive force between oxygen of one water molecule and hydrogen of another water molecule. Okay, now you can see that the hydrogen bonding is represented by a red dotted lines. Okay, this is actually the weaker force between 2 water molecules. The same is true for other water molecule. That is said to be the hydrogen bond or hydrogen bonding.